All right, time for our Dollar Dialogue segment. And this week, we're talking all things tax time because, of course, it's that most wonderful time, end of financial year, Christmas for accountants. But it can be an exciting time for the average taxpayer too, as they seek to reel in a meaty tax refund. Joining us to share his top tips on what to keep in mind this tax season is Mark Chapman, Director of Tax Communications at H&R Block. G'day, Mark. Great to have you back on the Savings Tip Jar.
Thanks, Dominic. It's good to be here. Tax time is always one of the busiest periods in the year, and this year there are plenty of things that we need to talk about.
Oh, good. Okay, so we know that the ATO always likes to have little focus areas each tax year. So what can we say are the ATO sort of hotspots in 2025-26? What should we look out for?
Well, I mean, the ATO's message is pretty consistent year after year because basically the same mistakes keep popping up. So in 2026, there are really three key focus areas that the ATO is concentrating on. First of all, there's work-related expenses. Secondly, there's rental property deductions. And thirdly, there's making sure that everybody's income is completely declared. Because the ATO has publicly identified these three areas as areas where taxpayers commonly make mistakes, either intentionally or deliberately.
Yeah, for sure. Now, obviously, tax has been all over the headlines lately in the wake of the federal budget. And I guess we haven't really seen tax making the headlines this much for decades because it is such a substantial change. But just to clear up any confusion for any of our listeners that are a bit confused, are there any tax changes from the federal budget that will affect taxpayers this end of financial year?
No, not significant ones. Well, not even insignificant ones. The major change is going to be the introduction of the $1,000 instant tax deduction, but that doesn't happen until next tax year. So for this tax year, you don't need to worry about that. That basically enables taxpayers to claim up to $1,000 of deductions without keeping any records, any substantiation. It'll be very, very, very good for people with low incomes, with low deductions. Not so good if you're, a tradie or a teacher who might be claiming, multiple thousands of dollars of deductions. You'll still have to do it the old-fashioned way and keep records. But either way, you don't need to worry about that for this tax time. The system is exactly as it was. So other than some tweaking of rates, thresholds, etc., there aren't really any major changes for this tax time.
Well, you have touched on there the need to keep records. We can probably this time every year make all these vows of how we're going to do things better and get our systems in place. What should just the average taxpayer be doing to just be organised for this time of year?
Yeah, well, I mean, the best strategy is preparation. So between now and 30th of June, really taxpayers should be gathering all of their receipts and records. They should be reviewing their working from home records to make sure they've got a complete log of all of their working from home from 1st of July last year through to the 30th of June this year. They should confirm that the rental property records, if that's applicable to them, are actually complete. They should consider making deductible super contributions, if they can afford it and if they've got the capacity. That certainly is a very effective form of pre-year-end tax planning. And they should check their investment income statements. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see is people waiting until July and then trying to reconstruct an entire year's worth of expenses. So it is very well worthwhile getting ahead of that and doing that for the next 3 weeks of June before we get to the 30th of June.
Mm-hmm. Now, Mark, I feel like it's become a lot easier for people to do their own tax returns thanks to pre-filled data. I've noticed myself personally when I log in. I think often I do mine quite late because I have to wait for all the data to come through properly. I think it will be like August maybe, and then pretty much everything's all there, and I don't have to do much, but maybe tweak a couple of little bits and then hit submit. So, But yeah, should people really be trusting that pre-filled data? I mean, it does come from the government after all, but should people always check before they submit?
Well, I mean, the data does come from the government in the first instance, but the primary source of that data is a third party, an employer, a bank, an investment institution, etc. So you're relying on that third party to actually report your income or expenses correctly. So, pre-filled data is incredibly useful, but it should never be treated as complete or necessarily correct. Because the ATO makes it clear that taxpayers remain responsible for what's lodged in the return, and they can't basically pass over the responsibility on the basis that they were simply validating pre-filled data. Sometimes information arrives late. Sometimes investment income requires adjustment. And sometimes taxpayers have income sources that aren't actually automatically reported. There's still plenty of sources of income which aren't pre-filled. So pre-filling is it's a great starting point, but it isn't a substitute for reviewing your return carefully. So taxpayers shouldn't simply press submit on the basis that all of their information is actually going to be uploaded correctly. The tax return is ultimately your responsibility. And a 5-minute review can save a lot of headaches down the track.
Oh, that's probably good advice. Now, look, you have run us through the common areas of mistakes that the ATO looks out for each time. But what's the biggie? What's the biggest, most common error that everyday Australians make every tax year?
Yeah, well, probably the big one is claiming private expenses. People sometimes assume that because they use something occasionally for work, then the entire cost is deductible. So that apportionment calculation is going to be crucial. With mobile phones, with internet, with tools that they potentially use for work, as well as for personal use. It is essential that they only claim the work-related proportion and they don't claim anything that's used privately. So that's probably the big one. Another common one is double dipping, which is where somebody claims something as a deduction that's already been reimbursed by an employer. And also missing income, particularly from side hustles, investment platforms, short-term rentals, cryptocurrency transactions. That's very common as well.
Now, Mark, we can't have a tax expert on the podcast without mentioning those massive changes that are coming up. Now, a lot of these do kick in from 1st of July 2027. But so with that in mind, is there anything people could be doing now, with, about a year's lead up to that to prepare for those changes?
Yeah, well, I mean, the big changes are around capital gains tax and negative gearing, where the basically the whole system is fundamentally being reformed. The problem with doing anything just at this precise moment is that the legislation is only available in draft form, hasn't actually gone through the Parliament yet, so you've yet to see what that legislation finally looks like. So we don't know exactly what rules people will be playing with. But we do know that, particularly with the capital gains tax changes coming on the 1st of July 2027, it will be necessary for people to get a valuation of their property or whatever they own, shares or cryptocurrency or commercial property, residential property. So it is worthwhile bearing that in mind. That's something that people will have to do as we get into the next tax year, as we head towards the 30th of June 2027. There's inevitably going to be a big demand for valuers to value property. So it could well be worthwhile, not immediately, but setting that up and going ahead with that. Other than that, basically just watch this space. Pay close attention to the legislation, and we'll see exactly what the rules actually are once it's passed Parliament.
Yes, that's good advice, because I imagine accountants everywhere are getting inundated with all sorts of questions, and I think there's a lot of detail not known by the sound.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Mark, for joining us today. Do you want to wrap up, Dom?
Yeah, I thought you were wrapping up, Denise. Yeah, thanks so much, Mark, for your time on the Savings Tip Jar podcast. Really appreciate your insights as always.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Cool.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.